Let's start with the Steelers side. What did you learn about this team being able to hold off the Bucs comeback?
Well, looking at the Steelers over the years, and especially last year, this team's not that different than what we saw last season. Last year they started 2-1. They ended up losing their third game of the season to Chicago, and everybody was worried about where they were. Fifth game, they had problems. That they typically don't start fast. And the only difference between this year and last year is the tie versus the Browns instead of the win against the Browns. I really liked what Vance McDonald did. You know, Vance is a player I've known for a long time from San Francisco. But them being able to incorporate the tight ends as effectively as they're starting to, I think, is huge for this offense because it helps Antonio Brown, helps Juju Smith. It helps everything work that much better. So I was excited to see that. The fact that they were able to force the turnovers that they did in the first half, that was a positive step for them as well. This team tends to build as the season goes on, and it looks like it's looked in the past.
The passing game looks excellent. The offense, because the passing game's been so good, it hasn't really mattered that much. Last couple weeks, they haven't had a super effective running game. James Conner, after that first awesome week, he's 23 carries for 78 yards, but they're scoring a ton of points. They scored 37 against Kansas City. They scored 30 last night. The offense has been fine. There's right now, I would say, two issues with the team. One is the defense as a whole. The last couple weeks has not been able to get stops, particularly through the air. And the other one is very odd for a Mike Tomlin team, the penalties. They had only, in his 11 years leading up to this year, they'd only been top 10 in the NFL one time. This year, they're first with a bullet. As a head coach, how much of being a highly penalized team is on the head coach? How much of it is on just the small sample size bad luck beginning of the season? Like, how much would you lay at Tomlin's feet? Because he was getting a lot of criticism during the broadcast and during the week about how highly penalized they were before the game, and then during the game, they had, what, a dozen penalties?
So the stat that you gave earlier about penalties, where did Tomlin rank over the last 10 years?
He's only been in the top 10 once in 11 years. They've never been a highly penalized team.
Okay, so those other 10 years, are we going to give him credit for only being?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
I think that Tomlin hasn't changed his philosophy in terms of penalties or the way that he handles penalties, and he's shown a track record to be very efficient and good in that area. Do I think that he's happy with where they are? No, of course he's not happy with where they are. Do I think he's going to stay pat and accept those penalties? No, he definitely isn't. It's a priority. It obviously has been a priority because he's been so successful with it, and I'm sure he's addressing it consistently. Do you sometimes get those penalties in bunches? Yeah. Now how you address them, and if some guys are getting them too often, you may have to sit them down and play somebody else.
Yeah, I'm concerned about their defense. We'll always talk about their offense. They have the big stars on offense, but this is not Pittsburgh Steelers like, giving up the number of big plays, not being able to hold a 20-point lead. And at the end of the game, Tampa Bay, we could have easily been talking about, man, the Pittsburgh Steelers lost this game after having a 20-point lead. Secondary, I'm concerned about it. Artie Burns on the right side, you can see that Tampa Bay has been targeting him. Teams have been targeting him since he came into the league, 2016 from University of Miami, a first-round pick. So typically they get great results out of their draft capital. They're not getting that in the secondary, and that's been a problem.
Are you happy enough and confident enough with their offense to be able to withstand whatever they take and whatever the holes they have on their defense?
I was on a great, prolific offense. They weren't better than our offense, and we 2 times did not score 30 points in the season, and we lost both of those games. One, week number 8 in Tampa Bay. We lost to the Tony Dungy and the Warren Sapp, John Lynch team, and then we lost to the Atlanta Falcons doing the Dirty Bird NFC Championship when we failed to score 30 points. So you can win a lot of games, but it's hard to win a championship.
And in fairness to them, though, they have played Tampa, he's hung 400 yards on all 3 teams that he played. Kansas City, they're pretty explosive as well. Does that give them a bye or an excuse? No, not at all. They need to find out who they are this year. And he's changed a lot of things over time with the Steelers' defense. For years, the Steelers were always a zone blitz, multiple zone blitz, primarily 8-in-the-box team. He's incorporated more man-to-man. Mike Tomlin, he's incorporated more cover 2. Those things have never been part of the system. So as you bring that in, as you continue to address that, now what's the balance? What's the balance of what they used to do versus what they want to do or move to?
And the way last night's game ended was critical because, as you mentioned, we could be sitting here talking about Tampa Bay having their first 17-point comeback in franchise history. The Steelers, you mentioned it earlier, haven't blown a 20-point second-half lead in the history of their franchise. I think what you said is like and if that's how last night's game ended, if they couldn't put it away on the ground, James Conner, after having a relatively ineffective game, had a big run late. Big Ben had a big completion late. They could take knees. If the Steelers lost today, oh, it's total panic time. Like, that is how quickly things can change. Like, now you look at it, you're like, okay, we thought we'd be 2-1 through a tough opening 3 games, right? A road game in Tampa, road game against a better Cleveland team, home game against Kansas City. We're 1-1-1. Like, we're a half game worse than what we probably would have expected. We haven't had Le'Veon Bell. You can deal with it where they are right now. They play Baltimore. I think it's Sunday Night Football this coming weekend. They win that game, they're probably going to be in first place in the division after the first quarter of the season. But if the last few minutes of last night's game had gone the other way, yeah, you're panicking in Pittsburgh. But that's almost the nature of this league, right? Like that, if a lot of teams that it's the Raiders. The Raiders have led through 3 quarters every game this year, and they've lost every game this year. Like the little moments at the end is why we're talking about
the one thing that Ben mentioned in the press conference after the game, that yes, all families have issues, yes, but all families don't have a child that don't want to be in their house, and that's where L. Bell is. All right, they drafted him, they decided to franchise him, not once, but twice. All right? There's no other team that has some, even Earl Thomas. He kicked and screamed, but he playing football. Now, maybe not on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, not too much practice. So when Ben talks about, this is normal, no, it's not normal, Ben. They keep trying to put that on us. Oh, it's people outside. No, Ben, you have someone who doesn't want to be there. He's not happy being there. He's one of the best players. All right, and it affects your ball club. So that's what the truth is in Pittsburgh. They're not playing up to their expectations. As Coach said, they get a slow start. They can get it turned around with a win against Baltimore.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.